There's no monopolist who's a kind monopolist. The concept work from home is kind of stupid.
I love that.
Oh, that's a nice obituary.
So, welcome, Barry, media maestro, Lord of all you survey. I just love that whole reprise of your career. And as we sit here in this moment of sort of catastrophe in the media, I just love your sense of why have we, in journalism, because there's a whole other, sort of landscape of chaos out there, but we're really talking about sort of the destruction of so much in media, the platforms crashing and things closing, etc. How do you see this reckoning, and why has it happened?
Oh, such a small little question. Thank you so much. Well, obviously, it's been growing for a while. We just have so much noise. We have so many people communicating in so many ways because this miracle of technology where you literally push a button and publish to the world has had the effects that it has had enormous both value destruction and the opposite of it. As far as journalism, I read more than I ever have, and I'm confused more than I ever have been. And I don't think fake news doesn't really bother me. I think there's been hardly real truth in journalism and certain sectors of it back to The Simpsons. So I'm not really concerned with that. I'm not also concerned with the dangers of generative artificial intelligence as it relates to actually journalism. I don't like it, and I think it's a terrible mistake for publishers to allow it to suck up every known piece of work that has ever been done, including every brand that anybody here, or certainly my company, has lots of them. And I reckon that to back 20 years ago when everything was free on the internet. The internet began as a concept of free media.
Yeah, and you've said that you think it was a giant mistake.
It's idiotic.
That so-called mainstream media allowed that to happen.
Well, what publishers did is they said, well, it's free, okay, we'll put it up and take ads. Of course, advertising was not enough to support it, and you saw over the last certainly 15 of those years, you saw enormous destruction. It truly brought the New York Times to the hour of bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. What saved it was the group, basically, journalist group, said, it ain't free. We'll put a paywall up and you will pay for it. And year by year by year, that built itself up and saved, basically, mainstream journalism that the bar was high enough in desire that it would get you through those paywalls rather than simply toss it and go on to the next, so to speak, free thing. Right now, the same thing is happening, which is unless publishers say, you cannot do that until there is a structure in place for publishers to get paid, you'll see another wave and an even more divisive, an even more destructive one.
But of course, on AI, the claim will be fair usage, that you can't legally stop that happening.
Well, I'm sure why would you all know of the US copyright law? But there is part of it which is called fair use, transformative, and the basis of what must happen is fair use has to be redefined. Mm-hmm. You can't have fair use when there is an unfair machine that knows no bounds.
Mm-hmm. So how are you going to stop that? What are you going to do about it?
Our company, with Dotdash Meredith, we're the largest, for my sins at this moment in time, print and digital publisher. So we, together with News Corp and Robert Thompson and Matthias Daphner at Axel, and we'll have others join us, but we're leading a group really that's going to say, we're going to work to change the copyright law, which is necessary. We're going to work to say to publishers, you cannot take our material or we will litigate. So we're going to be very active. You can't, it's incredibly dim to think you can put your hand up and stop technology. But what you can do is say, what you own, what you publish, you have a right to control.
Well, I mean, I think it's great that you are going to stand up, because
we'll
nobody
see.
did 20 years ago.
We'll see.
So you've successfully stayed ahead of the curve, Barry, such a long time. I mean, what makes your antenna sort of ping when about a new opportunity? Because you clearly have that great sense of when to move on, when to discard, when to, grab or swoop, perhaps is a more elegant word.
Well, you mean, what is it?
Yeah, what is it you listen to?
I'm curious. It's the only thing. I got two things going. I'm curious, and I don't want to know too much. Because most of the things that I've missed are because I've been bombarded by dim, very educated business school folk with PowerPoints that are PowerPoints. Truly, if you really want something abolished that is utterly non-productive, abandon PowerPoint forever, because it destroys discussion. It is all designed in the proliferation of slides to get you to a point that someone else has directed via PowerPoint, and that's an insidious. I meander around, sorry.
No, I'm
that's an insidious
thrilled
process.
that we're going to headline abolish PowerPoint.
The truth is, if as I say, I'm lucky because I'm curious, and I'm also lucky because I'm a little dim, which is, I believe these decisions are mostly instinctive. Is it a good idea? And you can scratch around, is it a good idea, an awful lot. But if you actually start doing projections and do all sorts of math stuff and define what the size, there's the word TAM, which it took me many years to even understand because I was not paying enough attention, which is the total market size. And then your position in it and all this drivel. You really do get misled. So I think, and I've always thought, as you know, that editorial choices between A and B are binary and instinctive. Is it a good idea? And if you think it is, despite the odds, which by the way, the more in a way the odds are against you, the better chances you have, because it means less people will try and do it.
And what have you missed that you feel you look for the wrong advice?
The list is endless. I've just gotten a few, but they've been good.
Yeah, they have. So, of course, you're also very famous for discovering and sort of growing talent. I mean, people don't seem to realize that Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg, those legendary Hollywood names, were actually your sort of kid hires, right? It blows my mind that you were chairman of Paramount Pictures at 32. I mean, how could that even happen? But how do you go after that talent? How do you hang on to it? It's very hard to hang on to talent, as we know, in this extremely competitive world. Even harder than spotting it is hanging on to it, actually.
Well, I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, I've been very lucky. A lot of people that have been in my life have been around it for a long time. But I have a big bias about hiring for senior positions outside of your own company. I think it's a true failure. The best thing you can do is find people who have some spark and savvy and some energy and hopefully a little edge at the earliest part when they really have almost no experience, and drop them in over their head in the water, and they'll struggle. You can help them a little bit, but you don't really need to help them that much. Yes, you can course correct some. And they will often, surprisingly often, they'll learn to navigate, swim, get to the other side, and grow in your organization, in the sensibility of the company that you want to have. Mm-hmm. That is how you get people to grow, and that's how you tighten the sieve for talent. And experience is, look, yes, I think I do want a doctor who's got some experience, but in the narrative world, experience is worth nothing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's worth nothing at a certain point in life. If you're 58 years old and you've had no experience doing anything, I suggest I wouldn't.
It may be too late.
If I dropped you in the water, there'd be a lot of floating on the bottom, or not floating on the bottom. So, but at an early stage, it's the best way to find people. And then the only way that you can keep people around you is you keep, if they're not chugging for opportunity, you're not throwing it at them, it's your fault and they will leave.
Yeah. Well, of course, you worked very closely with Rupert Murdoch.
I did.
Right, at Fox Broadcasting.
But it must be very quickly said, I left Fox Broadcasting 2 years before he founded Fox News.
Yes, we have to definitely
in a full disclosure, I did introduce him to Roger Ailes. I have that on my, list of sins.
We'll pass lightly over that, but I know that you have always had actually a very good relationship with Rupert, a very cordial relationship. And yet he's also the man, of course, who happily presided over Fox News as a palace of absolutely premeditated lies. So, how do you square those two things in this man? I mean, you know him very well, but...
Look, but what, Tina?
Well, but there is this very dark thing he's presided over and has done it a lot.
He's responsible for it to the point, and I think it's terribly sad for somebody who has been one of the greatest risk takers, the shrewdest of risk takers, who enjoyed actually betting his company to create something that didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And the number of, in Britain, Sky News, and Sky, not News, which I participated in, this is in the 80s, where, as you probably know, there was a government-sanctioned service, and Rupert, with a literally tin can satellite from, I think it was Liechtenstein, just put billions of dollars with not a single dollar of revenue. He bought up because it was perceived at the time, and correctly so, that movies would drive subscriptions on original satellite television. He spent truly, I think, $3 or $4 billion, and I helped him buy these movies. And I said to him, Rupert, there is no market. And he said, we'll create a market. Mm-hmm. And he simply brazened forth and did it. Look, when he did Fox News, no one wanted that. They said, who needs another news service? And originally, I totally supported. I thought, okay, conservatives, the center, right, whatever you want to call it, good on Rupert. The tragedy of Rupert is that he is going to be known for what is a hideous service in Fox News. Allowing those commentators, which they did with their eyes open, to do what they did, to pour that kind of divisiveness consistently, is a poison that, which I think is truly unfortunate, is going to stain him
and
his reputation forever.
There was also the phone hacking cases 10 years before, which was another shocking display of absolute sort of immoral recklessness, frankly. So again, back to the question, how do you square it with the man that you just painted as this massively interesting?
I don't know that you can square it. I think you can round it. How's that?
Yeah. Good.
No, I don't think it's squareable. As I say, I think the sadness is he will be remembered for, his reputation, unfortunately, and I do say it because it's hard for me because I'm fond of Rupert as a person, and I'm certainly aware. And I just said earlier that I think he and his son, maybe more than Rupert, have poisoned the atmosphere, and that's a bad legacy. There's no doing anything with it other than that. And the hope maybe in their recent firing of Tucker Carlson, though I think that might have been, I'm not so sure that was done for saying, oh, let's turn our corner. I would not really imagine that. I'd hope for it. But so I think we're stuck with what we're stuck with.
And in your time working with Rupert, what were your most challenging exchanges? I mean, how did you negotiate that relationship? How did you find him as your overlord?
Look, I worked there for 8 years. I kind of brought Rupert into Fox in a long tale I won't bore anybody with. 1 month after I started at Fox, having left Paramount, Rupert came in. In 8 years, we had one disagreement, literally. And you couldn't have, you can't, first of all, he is the sun, he's the Sun King. And when the Sun shines from the Sun King, it's a wonder. You can't have
a warmer day.
You can't have a better atmosphere because, listen, the wonderful parts of Rupert, the gambler in him, the joyousness with which he fights establishments, or he fights to establish new things, many of them very good things. And when I said, I'd been working on, I thought Fourth Network, there were only 3 at the time, was a good idea, and had started work on it when I was at Paramount. When I got to Fox, there was an opportunity to do it. And he was just like, he slaps his hand on his thigh, meaty big hand. Let's go. And I said, well, we got to buy these stations. This is in 1985. They'll cost $1.1 billion. He said, great, go do it. I was like, okay, well, that sounds odd, but all right, I'll go try. And a week later, we had a deal to buy the backbone of original Fox. And I went downtown to pick up Rupert at the old New York Post building. And as we're in the car going up, he again slapped his head and says, well, we're betting the company, but with such enthusiasm.
Yeah, with a raw vigor to it, yes.
You can't do anything but, be lucky enough to be in that atmosphere. And I really was responsible for the company. I talked to Rupert frequently. As I say, establishing Fox Broadcasting was no easy trick. And it turns out we invested $137 million. Sounds like truly nothing today, but at the time it was real dollars before we broke even. And Rupert, among other things, and I kind of like that, is impatient. And we had our one disagreement 3 months before Fox basically turned the corner when he says you're going too slow and whatever. And I basically tried to blow him out of the car that we were riding in.
Yeah, you left. Whole other story. But anyway, so we've mentioned the fact that you were only 32 when you went to Paramount. And we could be looking at a US election between a man of 78 and one of 81. So, speaking as a woman who's getting up there a little bit to a man who's getting up there a little bit.
Thank you. Reminder of every day.
I mean,
yes, Tina, what?
Well, how old is too old to be sharp?
Oh.
I mean, really. Here's Rupert.
You may be looking at the very definition thereof, but I don't, honestly, I know many people older than me who are just fine sharp. I don't think it's actually age. I think, unfortunately, we do have a president who presents shakily. When he walks, you're a bit worried. Next step, because he's worried about the next step, and you can feel it. And I'm not saying he's quote unfit, but it it puts the question mark in your head. Actually, the horrid Trump, I mean, I do think you'll have to kill him with a cross.
Yes, well, Jean Carroll has certainly tried.
To the heart, but so I don't think it's. Look, what's terrible is we don't have many young people any place. Well, that's not true. You got one in Britain, but we don't have many young people who are in local, much less national politics.
Right.
And that's a terrible shame.
Yeah, to your point earlier about, the energy of the young being the best for the jobs. Let's quickly, just in our last few minutes here, speed date a couple of titans in your world.
God.
Yeah. Give us your current readout on Elon Musk and Twitter.
Oh, okay, quickly. Elon Musk is, you don't have a better definition of an all-out, all-on-the-table entrepreneur, a true, actually person who says, there is something there and I'm going to go after it. It sounds impossible, but I'm going to Mars, or I'm doing this. All of that, there are two things I have great respect for. That one is the ability to do it and the ability to be a much better manager than anyone thought. He's he's a good engineer. He's a great manager to have pulled off what he has pulled off, both with the rocket company as well as, of course, the car company. And that, I mean, that's great. The other thing about him is he's willing to be human, meaning very few people who do that kind of stuff. Usually they're caged, they're careful, cautious about what they say. They don't reveal much about themselves. He's absolutely thrilled to be human, meaning say things that are not only provocative, but across the spectrum. And then there's the result of it, which I think if ever at a moment he needs somebody to tape his mouth, it is recently and certainly now, because a lot of what he says, it's not that it's crazy talk, and that doesn't bother me, but it's really rough stuff. And the thing, it epitomized me, the thing he did about Bill Gates. Do you remember that when he did a tweet basically saying Bill Gates is too fat and
I forgot that.
unattractive and whatever. And I thought, oh, you really are going off that rail. I think what he's done, I think we are yet to see. People criticize what he's done with Twitter. What I think is extraordinary, most extraordinary fact is he's literally cut 75% of the workers at Twitter, and it still works. What does that say? I mean, that is remarkable. What he will make of it, I don't know. But again, people discount him as a manager. All right, so that's
interesting. Okay, counterintuitive. Sam Altman, co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, he's on your board.
He's my friend.
And he's your friend. So how did he get there first, and did you see him as the next unicorn?
I adore him. If you spend 10 minutes, and I was lucky enough 10 years ago or so to spend 10 minutes with Sam Altman, you realized you were in the presence of a mind that you couldn't contain, that it was too smart. And so as he was developing OpenAI and the founding principle of AI, and what he got in a fight with Elon about, because Elon co-founded, basically it was Elon and Sam who founded OpenAI, and OpenAI is the basis of ChatGPT, et cetera. Sam is every version of the real deal, and he's done something quite remarkable. He's opened up AI to Microsoft. We'll put $10 billion in, and some other investors. And they have a cap on how much they can earn. That's one part of it. The second part of it is he has reserved for himself, personally, the ability at any time, notwithstanding all this money that's been put in the company, to pull the plug on generative AI if he feels it's going into dangerous territory.
My God.
The other thing that people don't know about Sam is there's nobody who's ever done a company or done something of any size, except if it's truly in the philanthropic sector. He doesn't own any of the company. So here you've got somebody who is so purely motivated, who is not economically driven, and who understands the dangers that are in front of AI, obviously thinks of the promise of it. You couldn't make up a better steward.
Well, let's hope he survives then, because we now have Sam Altman as
child.
our god. I mean, he's God in the AI.
gone?
Sam Altman, because if he can pull that plug, you know, we're depending on his moral center essentially, right?
Yes, I said. I think you have a. By the way, he's quite young and he's a very good steward. It won't go bad under Sam Altman. Unfortunately, or fortunately, or whatever he is hardly the only player here.
Right. Last question. You know, we're talking about a lot of these big deals very often. You know, you saw the taking over for AT&T, going with Discovery and the sale of Fox, etc., to Disney. What happens is they take on all the debt, then they say they have to cut people. And that happens time and time again. So what happens is they pay too much, and then they say, we're so over-leveraged, and all the talent ends up...
No, Tina, it's
happens
not really
time and time again. I think people feel so often that is the price that they have to pay for these massive, toxic mega deals.
Well, you know, what happened is really interesting, which is here these companies, these basically Hollywood studios, Disney and Fox and Paramount and Universal, they had hegemony over the entire filmed entertainment business for 75 years. Along comes a tech company called Netflix, and they all literally shot their own rocket off in putting up their own services. They shot the rocket off, and then they ran to where it would land right on their heads. And that's what's happened, which is they all ran after an economic model that if any of them had begun to think it through, it wasn't like a good idea, let's build it. It was, they've gotten direct relationships with the consumer. We must do that too. Therefore, we'll stop our very profitable business of selling things to each other, et cetera. We'll do it all ourselves. We'll add so much programming that's coming out of people's ears. And in the end, what they did not think through is you don't have pricing power. If you have a competitor down the street who's pricing it over here, you can't say, well, God, I spent all this money. It's got to cost this much. You're dumb stuck. And so they are all showing these losses, and there is the destruction that comes from that.
It's PowerPoints to blame again, I suspect. So we have to stop there because we're running out of time. Barry, we could listen to you for the next half an hour, but thank you so much for sharing the knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you.